ladies and gentlemen, Gary Moore.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Hi. Pedro Wendell. Greetings, friends. Thank you and welcome to Tell the Truth. Those of you who are followers of the New York Mets, and I assume that is all of mankind, will be very familiar with the dazzling work of our leadoff guest. And those of you who saw the New York Mets in the 1973 World Series with the Oakland A's saw his dazzling work as well. We'll have to wait to find out who he is while we meet our home run panel here on To Tell the Truth. Bill Cullen. Peggy Cass. Host of Beat the Clock, Gene Wood. And Kitty Carlisle.
You look green today.
I love it for me.
Well, may I say that I am comforted as always by the presence of our indefatigable regulars, Carlisle, Cast, and Cullen, and cheered by a guest who I've known for many happy years, Mr. Gene Wood, the host of Beat the Clock. Gene?
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Gene, you never played this game before.
No, this is my first time, Gary.
Well, it's very, very simple. After each question, what happens is you break a balloon, and your chair collapses, the panel all change clothes, and you got 20 seconds in which to do it, okay?
Yeah. Well, I know how to play the game. I've been married for 9 years. It's,
And you've learned about to tell the truth. You
Right.
better ahead. I'm going to address our first question to our sportsnicks, which is Peggy and Bill. When I say that the man that you're going to meet next is a denizen of Shea Stadium, and that he is not a hitting man, he is not a throwing man, and he is not a catching man, but he is rather a celebrated sign man. To whom am I referring? Would you know?
Yeah.
You don't know his name.
I don't know his name.
Well, all right, his position.
He's an agency man. He has a sign for every... Oh, no, he sits in the stands.
Yeah.
And when somebody
That's right.
hits a hit-
It's Karl Ehrhardt, the inventive man who held
Yeah.
up all of those signs
Beautiful
during the
signs.
the
Right.
Mets
Very
games. As
nice.
a matter of fact, his signs captured the imagination of John Lindsay. Here's a copy of the New York Daily News with John Lindsay
remember that.
holding up a sign inspired by relief pitcher Tug McGraw's affirmation of faith, in which he said, "You gotta believe."
I don't like the headline too much.
All right, now let's have Mr. Ehrhardt enter and, excuse me, sign in, please.
Number one, what is your name, please?
My name is Karl Ehrhardt.
Number two.
My name is Karl Ehrhardt.
Number three.
My name is Karl Ehrhardt.
And obviously, panel, in the film clips, we had his face blacked out so that you couldn't identify him. Our job now is to find out which one is indeed Karl Ehrhardt, and here is his sign-making scenario. He says, "I, Karl Ehrhardt, am known as the sign man of Shea Stadium. From my third base box seat at many New York Met ball games, I flash a rich variety of signs that are either directed at specific ball players or that make a comment on the preceding play. I bring about 70 different homemade signs to each game. Surprisingly, the one saying 'You're a star' is always used in an unflattering way after a player makes an error. 'Louder' is usually flashed to work up the crowd in support of a Met rally. Perhaps my most famous sign was 'You're fired.' I first used it after the president of the Oakland A's fired his second baseman in the 73 World Series. I had the sign ready for the next Oakland player who were to bobble a ball. My amusing and provocative signs have caught the fancy of the crowd, the television announcers, and the management of the Mets. But it was not always that way. When I displayed one of my very first signs, several Met employees rushed over and tore it all to pieces. Signed, Karl Ehrhardt." you remember the setup, friends. We have across the way 3 chaps, all of who claim to be Karl Ehrhardt, the sign man of Shea Stadium, who displays homemade signs at many New York Mets baseball games. And let's start with a gal who's nice to have around in the squeeze play, Miss Peggy Cass.
Thank you. Yeah. Listen, my dear, now, I really think that whoever you are, you're sensational. But number 3, did you used to have a mustache?
Never.
Oh, okay. Just a dirty screen, I guess. Number 2, who prints your signs? Because the printing is really good.
I make them myself at home, yeah.
What does your wife think of all this?
Well, she's a baseball fan, too, so she loves it, yeah.
Yeah, but like, number 1, does she ever get dinner on the table? Is your sign always there, getting painted?
Well, she has to call me quite a bit.
I see now. Number 3, what's your sign that you hold up for Bud Harrelson? What does it say?
When you've said Bud, you've said it all.
And number 1, you sit on the third base side, so number 1, who's the third base coach of the Mets?
Eddie Yost.
Thank you. Number 2, are you from Queens? You've got such fervor for the Mets. I feel you must be from Queens.
Of course, of course.
Okay. Now, oh, nuts. I
Oh,
finally know
Peggy.
something.
Hey, good questions. Let's go to Gene Wood.
Thank you, Gary. We're going to start with you, number 1. What do you do for a living, or is this your living?
I'm in merchandising. No, I have to work for a living.
You have to work for a living.
Yes, sir.
And you're in merchandising, all right? Let us go now to number 3. I want to ask you, when you've held up these signs at any point in your sign career, has an angry ball player ever threatened you or started to come after you?
Well, they've become angry with me. No one ever came after me, but there have been a few who've become angry with the signs.
And number 3 again, what did they say to you?
They didn't say anything. They made signs of their own.
And Kitty, if you dare ask what the signs were.
I would like to pursue that order of questioning of
afraid of
Mr.
that.
Woods.
Yes.
I would like to know if they made verbal signs. Did they say anything, or did they make signs with their hands?
Which
Number 3, I'm pursuing it.
Signs with the hands. Yeah.
Oh, then we will draw a veil, yes. Number 1, no. Number 2, what do you do for a living?
I'm in merchandising
Oh,
myself.
you all 3
yes.
are in merchandising, obviously, yes. And number 1, how did you get this idea first? Did it start with little tiny signs and then get to bigger signs, or did you start right away as a star?
Well, I started as a star. In 1965, decided to make a real big sign when Shea opened up, and that was Welcome to Grant's Tomb. So we went real big on it.
Number 2, when did you...
Thank you, Kitty. Let's go down to Bill Cutler.
I remember those signs through the year. Number 2, there was another Met fan who used to be a cheerleader, always wore a yellow raincoat no matter the weather. Who was that?
That was Dr. Dominic Principato, I believe.
Number 1, what was Dr. Principato's specialty?
Can't recall.
Interesting to mention, in those years of the Mets, he was an anesthesiologist, if I recall, number 1. And it worked out. Number 3, what was the name of the dog the Mets had their very first couple of years when they moved into town? They had a little dog that appeared on all their shows. Do you remember his name?
Slide is the only one I can think of.
Number 2, do they make you pay to get in after all these years of faithfulness that you've showed?
Oh, yes, yes.
They really do. Donald Grant, the general manager of the Mets, who won't allow other teams to play in there and who takes every available buck, he makes you pay. Is that right?
He does, but...
Let's give a boo for Mr. Grant.
Oh! I've been waiting to do that for years.
Well, I'm not going to get in there anymore.
Well, we heard the bell under the boo, and when we hear the bell at any time, it means that we must mark our ballots, friends. And we must mark them, of course, for number 1, or for number 2, or for number 3.
Today,
scale of our business.
Ground rules are that we pay $50 for each wrong vote. We paid the group $500 if nobody comes up with the real Carl. And Peggy starts, please.
I wonder if you get free... I love that sign. I voted for number 3 because I love that sign. When you've said Bud, you've said it all. So I voted for you. You knew that one.
We got a 3 showing, and Gene Wood.
Well, I voted for number 3 as well. There's a very famous sign I remember which says, John Wayne takes bubble baths. And number 3 looks like that kind of a guy. He looks like he's very cool under any circumstances. And he didn't get upset when I asked him if he was threatened by a ball player. He seems used to it. So I chose 3.
Okay, we got a pair of 3 showing, and Kitty?
Well, number 3 is he's got a witty mouth, and he's been waving at the audience, and he's very expansive, and he looks like a man who's used to big crowds. But somehow, I think it's number 1. And anyway, number 1 is wearing the same yellow shirt he had on in the picture. So I'm voting for number 1.
Well, that's true. Very observant. Okay, we got 1-1 and 2 threes. Bill
I didn't
Cullen.
let him do that.
Well, you know, I like number 3. He seemed to have all the answers. But by golly, number 2 knew the name of the doctor. And if he's not the right one, he did his homework. And for that reason, I voted for number 2. There you go.
On the basis of esoteric knowledge.
Yes.
All right, the votes are in. Will the real Karl Ehrhardt please stand up?
It's 2.
Very good, Karl, indeed. You are a great addition to the whole New York scene, the national scene, may I say. Number 1, what is your real name and what do you do?
My real name is John Alvanos, and I'm a national account salesman for Mead Containers.
And number 3, tell us about yourself.
My name is John Mahoney, and I buy men's jackets from Montgomery Ward.
Of course, we have no way of knowing how the panel is going to vote before the game started, being a totally ad-lib show. But Karl, you had another sign there, but hidden behind the desk, which you were going to use. Would you show it to us? In case, you know, that he wasn't voted for at all. Yeah. That he didn't get any votes. He had a sign back there he was going to show. You want to show it to us now? You've done it again. Karl, thanks for a million laughs and a lot of fun. And thank you, gentlemen, for being with us on Tell the Truth. Take care.